Let me preface tonight's show. I am going to give you an update from the most current information that we have from the Nazarene Fund in Afghanistan. Let me just tell you this. It shouldn't be this hard for the United States government to do what they're trying to do if they're trying to free people. But it's not working out real well. People ask me all the time, why? Well, let me assume the best. Why would we expect anything else from this administration? Because this administration is filled with the exact same people that were present during the ISIS rampage across Syria and Iraq. They are the exact same deaf ears that turned their backs and left Americans in Benghazi. These are the same exact people that sent billions in cash to terrorists in Iran. And so, yeah, today they are overseeing the worst geopolitical debacle in American history. But everything is about the human spirit, at least to many of us, the American spirit, honor, integrity, and helping others. But tonight, I need you to focus a couple places. Given the gravity of this historic week, we are in danger now of a repeat of what happened 20 years ago. And we have to decide tonight whether we're the people that can weather that storm or not. Hello, America. Tonight, I want to start by showing you several photos that all have two things in common. First, the subject of them. Second, the day they were taken, September 10th, 2001. Mike Haran was visiting New York City with his fiancée when he posed in this picture. The date you can clearly see is marked the 10th of September, 2001. Stamped in the bottom right-hand corner. Mike says this timestamp represents to him, and I want to quote him, a timer counting down the dying moments of an old world since replaced by the tense and paranoid one we live in today, end quote. Most of our kids don't know what America was like before 9/11. And tonight I want you to think of the moments in which your life changed, that it happened that fast, a sudden loss of a loved one, a split-second decision that completely changed everything in your life. Perhaps it was a sympathetic look from a doctor, a knock on the door, a phone call, a text, a handshake, a crash, a mistake, a firing, or the second plane hitting the second tower. The instant you realized this is different. This wasn't an accident. This is an attack. The instant you realized thousands were still trapped, that people were jumping. Or the day you realized America wasn't invincible.
So you have no idea right now?
There's another one. Another plane just hit. Right. Oh my God! Another plane has just hit. It hit another building. Flew right into the middle.
If you were
of it.
alive,
Explosion. That was definitely.
That was the moment that our world changed. It happened that fast. We were watching one plane, hoping against hope, and then that second plane hit, and everything changed. That's the theme of our show tonight. Because our nation has changed dramatically in recent years. It has changed seemingly even faster in the last 8 months. I would have told you 2 years ago, in fact, I think I did, that if you ever tried to do what China was doing to their people because of COVID, we would never allow it. Now we have mask and vaccine mandates. Our kids have been out of school for what? Almost 2 years? Children are now no longer taught that cops are heroes. They're now taught that there are twice as many genders in this country than states. Free speech has become an anomaly, and our American flag, that was a symbol of free and fair individual rights, something that we strove to be better. Now that symbol is considered racist by many. But these changes have taken days, months, and years to take hold. September 11th, 2001 was completely different. And as much as I think about the change September 11th represents for us, Americans, I've really been thinking a lot lately about one day in particular that represents to me more than the others how quickly our country and world can transform forever. It's a day that we forget far too often, and it's not this one. Over the years, I've devoted a lot of time to remembering the next day, September 11th. That was the day after. That was really important, September 12th. It was a time when all of a sudden we united in a way we never had in my lifetime, and I fear maybe we never will again. And those stories of unity need to be heard year after year and in the days between. Because most of the young men and women who just finished fighting all of the wars that 9/11 brought about don't hold these firsthand memories that so many of us do. We were painfully reminded of this just 2 weeks ago when 13 of our finest gave their lives to ending our post-9/11 efforts. Most of them were in diapers the day it began. For them, we must remember so that their sacrifice will continue to mean something for the generations to come. We have to remember the story of Suju John. He's an immigrant, a new American who I met a few years ago, who on the morning of the attacks from the 81st floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower looked out on a clear day and prayed to God for a sign that his life was meant for something beyond the cubicle walls from that fancy office in which he sat.
I come down 81 floors and I get to the plaza level. I'm still in the building. We were told to go down to the lowest level, the concourse level. And anyway, Glenn, that's when my story begins. I walk towards the South Tower thinking I might find my wife. And that's when the ground begins to shake. It felt like it was an earthquake. I've been sucked into some kind of vacuum. 15, 20 people around me, we just huddled together. And, I found Jesus in India. A missionary led me to Jesus. And in that moment, facing death, I said, God, if I'm going to die, where am I going? Heaven becomes so real to me. Until then, I tell people I was a closet Christian. I would never be vocal or public about my faith. But that moment, a verse from the Bible comes to my mind. It's found in the book of Romans. It says, whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So 20 people with me, and that verse is playing on my mind. I started crying out, Jesus. And I asked those people to pray with me. So we prayed for a few minutes. The building is collapsing. And we moved from the huddle. I'm lying there with my face flat on the ground.
Where are you in the physical?
I'm literally, it's a story of just God's incredible.
Is this where the ball is, that
the plaza was actually where the ball is. That's a
so
plaza.
you're around there.
Yes, this is a concourse level, literally in front of the towers. I'm still in the building on the concourse level, where you would have these revolving doors that lead you towards the towers. So I'm right there, and I'm buried there, and thinking I'm going to die. And after a while, I feel someone pull me, and I began to pull him. And the closer we got to each other, I realized this is an FBI agent. He says he's with the FBI. So I asked him this question: do you know Jesus? He said he did. And we both started praying, saying, God, if it's your will, show us a way out of this place. We could not breathe. But something miraculous happens, a red light flashing to the soot. And we start crawling our way towards the light.
Wait, the building has collapsed?
The building has already imploded. The South Tower has. The North Tower was still standing. Okay. The South Tower has already imploded, and that was a debris. So we start walking our way towards, crawling our way towards that place. But my story takes another turn when this FBI agent, he let go of my hand, and he said, I got to go back, get more people. He runs back into the North Tower. The ground shakes again. The North Tower implodes. He's actually the only FBI agent to have died that day. He's left behind 4 children and a wife.
Wow.
He saved my life.
I have talked to so many people. I spoke to a child of 9/11, now a young man, who desperately combed through pictures and footage at just 12 years old, searching for answers about his lost father. What were you really looking for now that you're older and you're...
I think I was looking for both. I think that as I was growing up, I started to become ashamed of who I was. I felt that I was constantly labeled as a child of 9/11. I felt that people, when they met me, didn't look at me and say, that's Matt Bocci. They would say, that's the kid who lost his dad in 9/11. And that's what always stuck with me. And in looking at the pictures and the videos, I just wanted to it just sounds so crazy because who would want to look at that stuff to remember their loved one? But for me, I looked at that footage and I thought to myself, what he must have gone through. And I was trying to picture it in my mind, and picture all his coworkers and these friends, my friends' fathers, you know, with him there, and like what they must have been saying to one another and going through in that tower. And these were the thoughts that went through my mind and the things that I played out.
And then during the aftermath, the heroic firemen who stood next to George W. Bush at Ground Zero, as Bush gave an impromptu speech that perfectly embodied what we all felt. Him standing there next to that fireman with unmatched patriotism and determination to track down all of those responsible.
The president comes around and he does a hard right and he comes right in front of me and he puts his arm up. So I pull him up and I turn him around and I said to him, "Are you okay, Mr. President?" He said, "Yeah." And then I start to get down. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, I was told to get down. He said, no, you stay right here. And he put his arm around me, and that's my story.
What did the president say to you at one point? Do you even remember when he turned to you in the middle of the speech and he said some things to you? Do you remember?
No, we couldn't hear. We couldn't hear each other. We did speak to each other, but we didn't hear each other. It was too loud. The guys they were yelling. I didn't remember him having that megaphone, the bullhorn.
Really?
And then he started to speak, and he's speaking to the right, and the guys on the left, they're yelling, "We can't hear you." And then he turned to the left with the bullhorn, and he said,
"I can hear you."
And the whole world hears you.
And the people who knock these buildings down
will hear all of us soon. They went crazy. They went nuts. They started chanting USA, 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 and it was, he said everything in those 3 sentences.
These stories can't be forgotten because they changed us. The fear and at times indescribable pain, the bravery, the sacrifice, the heroism of September 11th, it cannot be forgotten. And I do what I can with you to keep the stories alive year after year. All of these interviews are now available to watch in their entirety on glennbeck.com. I encourage you to share them, especially with your children, as we approach the 20th anniversary of the attacks. They are not being taught in school. But tonight I want to focus on another night, another day. Because as I said at the beginning of the show, I've been thinking a lot about a different day that represents how quickly things can change. It's not September 11th. It's not September 12th. It's September 10th, 2001. This was the last day we lived in kind of an innocent tranquility that we now can't get back. We're still in that day in many ways. Let me show you a picture. It was taken by Jericho Kabaisa. It was taken on September 10th, 2001. Nearly 24 hours before the towers fell. Well, Jericho at the time had never heard of the Department of Homeland Security because it didn't exist. He may not have even heard about Afghanistan, or at least cared much about it. The phrase terror alert or see something, say something were foreign, completely foreign, as if it was another language. He didn't fear surveillance from our government or pray for the then non-existent troops in Iraq, Syria. ISIS wasn't a thing. Iraq wasn't a big deal. We had taken care of that, we thought. He took this picture and he flew back to LA. It was 11 o'clock at night. There wasn't a TSA checkpoint at the airport. Didn't exist. Full body scanners. That reality was left to science fiction or dystopian movies. Liquids. He could take as much as he wanted. It remained in his luggage, and his shoes stayed on his feet, and his belt stayed on his waist. On his flight back, midair, perhaps a little boy or a little girl was invited into the cockpit to visit the pilots, door wide open. That's what it was like on September 10th for Jericho. He landed, went home, woke up, and the world had changed forever. So why am I bringing this up? Because we are oblivious that we may be living September 10th, 2001, the day before the new war. Yes, our nation has changed in countless ways, and even more so in the last 8 months. But we are surviving. No. We are beginning to thrive as a people. We are pushing back from fighting critical race theory in our schools to defending Cubans' thirst for freedom, to most recently, in heroic ways, in something that it's akin to the Dunkirk episode in British history. American citizens volunteering to save thousands of Afghan refugees. Americans are standing up. They do know the difference between right and wrong, and they are filling the gaps that government will not. The change is fast, but it's not an instant. But something will happen, and will we survive another day like this? I think if I ask people, most people would say, I don't think we would. Change would be too great. The distance between us is too far, and there wouldn't be anything left to hold on to. We fear, whether due to incompetence, selfishness, political maneuvering, whatever the reason, we are speeding down that path. There are days that maybe even perhaps we find ourselves holding our breath, waiting. Doesn't feel right. Is that September 10th? Is tomorrow? Will it come next week, next year? In 5 years? We don't know. I have those fears a lot. But lately, I have been filled with so much hope because I remember you. Don't ever confuse America with the American government. They're not the same. I long ago counted Washington out. I know those bums, whatever. But every day it becomes more and more clear to me, don't ever count the American people out. You shouldn't do it, I shouldn't do it, nor should our enemies, foreign or domestic. Because we are the leaders of the future, not our politicians. You don't have to be a politician to be a leader. And we need Americans from all stripes and all walks of life that can put aside politics and work in unity to do the right thing. We've seen it before in our past. Rudy Giuliani did it 20 years ago as mayor of New York. He joins me with his advice next. You know what's really not fun? Falling into a hockey rink right as the players are deciding to have a massive fight. You know what's even less fun than that? Having your house stolen out from underneath you by some cyber criminal who learned about the wide, wonderful world of home title theft. Actually, I'd rather be in the fight in the ice rink because at least I know it's happening. With home title theft, you're going to wake up someday and your teeth are going to be missing and you got a bloody face and you're like, what happened? What happened? You won't know because somebody can pull your online title and they can make themselves the owner of that house. You're out. You won't know for a long time. You're not covered by insurance. You're not covered by your bank. Even common identity theft programs, they're not equipped to handle this sort of thing. They take out a loan in your name, then don't make the payments. They're long gone with the money. And next thing you know, the sheriff is out with an eviction notice. You got to get out because the bank owns your house. What? Register your address now to see if you're already a victim. Have a complete title history of your home ready. It's a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. A man who brought us back from the brink on 9/11 and the world loved. He was America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani. He was there on September 11th, and it was his leadership that brought us back from the brink. Mayor, how are you, sir? Mayor, I first of all, set the scene. Where were you when you found out about the planes hitting into the World Trade Center?
I was at a restaurant on 55th Street and Fifth Avenue in the Peninsula Hotel. I was having breakfast with my chief counsel, Dennison Young, and with Bill Simon, who was then considering running for governor of California in a situation very similar to what we have right now. And it was a day off, kind of. It was primary day. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party were having contested primaries for who would succeed me, because I was term limited. So I thought I could take the morning a little lighter. I usually had an 8 o'clock meeting. I moved it to 4. And I moved it to 4 because I figured that's when they would start complaining about cheating, which, of course, the New York Times says never happens, but happened in every election in New York. So I figured around that time we'd have to start doing our investigating. So I gave my staff until later in the day to come in that day. And then I was going to have a meeting with the widows of Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese, and a whole group of other people. We were funding a statue of Pee Wee Reese putting his arm around Jackie Robinson in that famous situation where he kind of accepted him, you know, guy from the South accepts the first black ball player. We were going to put that at the Mets' new minor league stadium in Coney Island. So I had no idea what was going to happen. And a police officer, Patty Verone, who was taking care of me, taking care of my security, detective, walked in and told Dennison Young, who told me that a twin-engine plane had hit the North Tower, that there was a terrible fire down there, and that we had to get there right away. So we quickly got up, said goodbye to Bill. Bill, Bill hugged me and told me, "God bless you," which he's kind of a religious guy, but there was something a little ominous about it. I mean, to me, this was just another emergency so far. So we walked outside, we looked up in the sky, and Denny and I both concluded, beautiful day, this can't be an accident. So now what do we have? Terrorist or insane person attacking one of the buildings, and I thought we should assume terrorist. Always assume the worst. You can always dial back from it. I was able to get the police commissioner on the phone as we were racing down there, and we started to take our preliminary steps for our terrorism plan, which we had developed years before and kept changing every year. And the first thing we did was close down the bridges and tunnels so that no more terrorists would come in, because we didn't know if this was one plane. Was there going to be another? Was it part of a signal for many attacks?
So wait. So
attacks?
You immediately, before the second plane even hit, you were closing down the tunnels and you were already acting, because the media at first said it was just like a twin-engine Cessna, and it clearly was not.
Yeah, and that's what I thought.
Right.
That's what I thought. But we would never have announced this because,
Sure.
What you should do with an emergency is you should assume the worst, begin that way, and then you can scale back. So Bernie and I, the police commissioner, decided we would begin with our terrorism plan and then see what happened. At that point, I was still 50-50 on and hoping it wasn't a terrorist attack. But as I kept looking at the building, as we're getting closer and closer and closer, and I'm looking at the building, Denny and I are both questioning, can this be a twin-engine plane? Look at the fire. The fire was massive. And then all of a sudden, we're about a mile away, and a big explosion occurs. Don't know what it is. Police commissioner calls me immediately and says, a second plane hit, boss. This is an attack. We're under attack. And I said, I'm trying to get through to the White House. He said, I think some of the guys have, meaning from our police department, I think we have air cover. I said, I know, but I want to get the president. So get hard lines, put in hard lines right near there. What I meant by that was the cell phones weren't working 100%, about 50. And I wanted good old fashioned connected telephones like we used to have in the old days. And he said, don't worry, boss, we're working on it. You got to understand, with my police department, it was very rare that I gave them an order they didn't anticipate. They're the greatest police department in the world. And they've been through everything imaginable except this. And When I got there, I got out of the car, and my first deputy mayor for operations, Joe Loder, ran up to me and said, "Mayor, this is terrible. This is hell. People are jumping out of those buildings." And I looked up. I didn't see anybody jumping out. So I hoped that he was exaggerating or overwrought. And then I walked the 2 blocks to right under the North Tower to meet with the fire chief who was running the emergency effort. And on the way there, while looking up and watching debris come down and hitting people, I saw a man on the 101st, 102nd floor. I saw him for a few seconds before he jumped. Obviously, indecision. Do I burn or do I jump? And he threw himself out. When that happened, I went into a different state of mind. I grabbed the police commissioner's arm and I said, "Bernie, this is way beyond all of our plans." We had like 27 emergency plans. This is something we're going to have to use our instincts. We're going to have to invent our response. We're going to have to move quick. And then we got to say a little prayer because only God can make this right. And he said, "You're right, boss." And then we immediately started going through a checklist of securing. So you have that 2 attacks now. I'm starting to get rumors that there are 8 planes, 9 planes, 10 planes. I'm starting to get rumors that there are going to be ground attacks. So we dispersed the police to the locations in the city that were on the priority list of targets for Islamic terrorists. That list was about 15 years old, and I was familiar with it from the time I was a prosecutor.
Rudy,
and I knew we had it.
Rudy,
so,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was thinking today as I was looking at the state of New York today, which is horrendous, and dying. A lot of people say we'll never come back. And I remember, because I worked in the Time Warner building, which was still under construction when this happened, and I remember what you did. You went and you marshaled the troops and said, "You're going to finish that building. Now, what is it going to take to finish that building?" And you marshaled all of the entrepreneurs and even the unions, everybody, to get things done in New York. Is DeBlasio or is New York even in a place to handle a terrorist attack? And which is it? Was it worse then, or is it worse now without an attack?
Wow. Well, first of all, I think the pandemic tells you that with the horrible way in which both DeBlasio and Cuomo handled it, that they're not ready for. I mean, this was the pandemic, stretched out over a longer period of time, but really should have been pretty simple to handle if the governor and the mayor worked together.
Right.
Here's one of the big differences. As soon as I got out of the building we were trapped in, I called the governor. And the governor said, "Thank God, we thought you were missing." And he said, "I've brought in the National Guard, but I'm not going to deploy them I wasn't going to deploy them until I could get you." And I said, "Well, I'm glad you did, because we need all the help we can get." And then George Pataki and I decided we would meet together. We would set up a joint command post, and we would govern New York City and state together for the next 3 or 4 months. Every day we had 2 to 3 meetings a day.
I remember it.
My staff, his staff. That afternoon, President Bush gave us FEMA to work with us, not over us, but with us. And by that evening, we had a team. And both George and I did that because we knew that even when you had a good relationship, which I did with him, your staff is going to start bickering over small things. And if I make a mistake, they'll criticize me. If he makes a mistake. So we had enough experience in government to know if we stick together, then our staffs will stick together. I think that was the single best decision we made.
All right.
And it's the thing that wasn't going on during the pandemic, because de Blasio and Cuomo hate each other. Right. They don't talk to each other.
More with Rudy Giuliani later. We'll tell you more about that here in a second. It's been 20 years since we went to war in Afghanistan because the Taliban was harboring terrorists, and those terrorists brought it to our shore. But now the war is over. And I'm starting to think our State Department trusts the Taliban more than they trust American citizens like you and me. But maybe the Taliban's changed, right? Don't buy it. Our government is the one that has changed. And we go there next. Crazy to think how quickly everything is moving along. Last week, the founder of Mobis Capital Partners, Mark Mobis, said explicitly that Americans right now should have 10% of their overall portfolio in physical gold. He said the global currency devaluation is going to be quite significant over the next year or so. And what stands up to currency devaluation? Gold. Nothing paper. Not the digital dollar. Gold. Please do what's right for you and your family. And maybe that's gold, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm urging you, have a plan. Have enough insurance to cover your portfolio when the fallout from this administration really starts hitting the fan. Goldline is who you need to talk to now. Find out about their weekly special on the extremely popular $5 Indian gold coins, which you'll get free coins with every purchase. Additionally, in honor of 9/11, with every purchase made until the end of business day on Friday, Goldline will also give you a 1-ounce silver flag bar, no cost to you. They're standing by to take your call now at 866-GOLDLINE, 866-GOLDLINE, or goldline.com. Last Tuesday night, before I went to bed, I received my last update of the day from the Nazarene Fund, what was happening with our rescue flights. The rescue flights out of Kabul had all but stopped, so we were pivoting to other airports that the Taliban didn't know about or weren't focused on yet. It was all working. One airport in northern Afghanistan, we had 4 planes on the tarmac, full of people, including over 100 Americans. We had everything. The people had been brought safely to the airport at great risk to volunteers. The planes were all paid for. We had attorneys working with the Office of Foreign Assets Control to ensure that everything was by the book and we weren't bringing terrorists out. I heard about this on Tuesday night. But everything had changed by the next morning, and as of Sunday, this satellite shot shows the status of our planes. There they are, the 4 of them. They hadn't moved 1 inch. So what happened? Well, I can tell you now, the United States government stepped in and refused to give the planes any clearance to land in any neighboring country or any country. They dug their feet in for so long that the Taliban took notice. And then they got involved and refused the planes from even taking off. The people on those planes had to get off the plane, give their papers and their passports and our manifest list to the Taliban. Many of them ran to safe houses. Others, we don't know where they are. If the government does ever clear those 4 planes, we have to go back out and find them and bring them in. 1 person is dead. 1 person is dead. The blood is on the hands of the State Department and White House. I am at wit's end. By all means, vet everyone fleeing the country, everyone. But these flights aren't landing in the U.S. They are landing in safe airports where they are being vetted in a safe environment. Just don't leave people like lambs to the slaughter. The Biden administration has been impeding this the entire way, and I am not the only one reporting this. Nearly every group involved is saying the very same thing. The State Department and the White House, that is the logjam. Congressman Mullen from Oklahoma sponsored a humanitarian flight that would land in Kabul. It was approved by the FAA. It wound up being forced to circle the Kabul airport because the State Department wouldn't clear it. Now, why wouldn't the government allow a flight sponsored by a U.S. congressman clearance to land? Why won't they let other flights even take off where they can be secure, in secure locations and be vetted? Here's something I want to know. What has our government already negotiated with the Taliban? I want you to listen to this ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Michael McCall. Listen.
Well, they are not clearing the airplanes to depart. They've sat at the airport for the last couple of days, these planes, and they're not allowed to leave. We know the reason why is because the Taliban wants something in exchange. This is really, Chris, turning into a hostage situation where they're not going to allow American citizens to leave until they get full recognition from the United States of America. My concern is that Zal Khalilzad, our special envoy, who's met with the Taliban, they're in talks right now, and I think I worry his recommendation to the administration will be to recognize the Taliban as the official government of the United States, a Taliban organization that is a terrorist organization.
So, we had this under control before the State Department walked in. We even had Cam Air working on all of the negotiations with the Taliban to get the plane off the ground. Now Uncle Sam is here. Full recognition that a terrorist organization is the official government of Afghanistan. So is the part of the negotiation, this bribe, is that keeping flights on the ground? Imagine what officially recognizing the Taliban would do. It would open an actual partnership with terrorists. You won't hear it called cash for hostages. It'll be spun as humanitarian aid. And if you don't think that'll happen, read the headlines. It already is. Think of Biden's Department of Defense. They never work with terrorists? It's already being considered. But not the old Taliban, right? No. They're working with new moderates now. Remember when the media carried water for the Obama administration over the moderates in Iran? Check out the latest media coverage on the Taliban. Can the West make the Taliban moderate? No! Sweeping conquest tests U.S. hopes of a more moderate Taliban. Check this one out from the Washington Post. Are we witnessing the emergence of a new, friendlier Taliban? Yes, to some extent. The new Taliban regime will probably be more moderate than the last. This weekend, they took the brain out of a female police officer in front of her kid out with a screwdriver. But what would you expect? This is the same media that seriously looked at Obama's top national security advisors in the eye and believed them when they said, Iran's now moderate. The Washington Post wrote that crap about a friendlier Taliban. Just 5 years ago, they wrote this piece admitting Ben Rhodes was out and out lying to them, and they bought it. You want to see what we can expect from a new and improved moderate and friendly Taliban 2.0? Well, this is the triumphant return of Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda security chief to his native province in Afghanistan. They're carrying on and preparing to party just like it was 2001. Is the stage being set for something worse than 9/11? Again, I ask, what should we expect from the Biden administration, which is nearly a carbon copy of Obama's? Afghanistan is just the tip of a much larger iceberg. Let's go back to the lies of Iranian moderates. The Taliban are effectively holding American citizens as hostages. How did the Obama administration handle something similar with Iran? Oh, yeah, that's right. They put $400 million in unmarked bills. They suspiciously arrived on the tarmac in Iran shortly before 4 detained Americans were released. And what were the ramifications of Obama's and now Biden's goons spooning with the Iranians? Iran swept across the Middle East. The IRGC was on Israel's doorstep. Gee, I wonder how those same officials are handling Iran now. Well, they're restarting their deals with Iran and rapidly expanding their team despite warnings from Israel. Now the question is, how much more dangerous will the terrorists be dealing with Biden in Afghanistan than the terrorist he's dealing with in Iran? Will the next 9/11 be delivered from Iranian-sponsored Hezbollah or, Taliban-sponsored Al-Qaeda? Or, it might be one or both, or maybe someplace entirely different. Biden and his goons are merely copying what they did back in 2011 when Obama botched the Iraq withdrawal. ISIS swept across the Middle East, resulting in terror attacks all over the world, including here at home. And as everything spiraled out of control, military officials at CENTCOM doctored the intelligence to make everything appear as if Obama's strategy was working. Boy, that sounds familiar. Kind of sounds a little or exactly like Biden's phone call with the Afghan president telling him to lie so that everything looks all cute and rosy for his political objectives. Any guesses on who the CENTCOM commander was under Obama that doctored that intelligence? Yeah, our current Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin. This is what these people do. They screw up, they lie, they rinse and repeat. But their screw-ups are getting to be disturbing. You can't screw this up that many times and still get away with it unless it's not a screw-up. And now they're planning to do what they did in Afghanistan in Iraq. Will they botch Iraq again as they did back in 2011? So now the new question is, will Biden's team open us up to the next 9/11 from ISIS in Iraq or Iran's Hezbollah or Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan? And that's a whole block. You sweep the Middle East. Their track record is catastrophic. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that the people who abandoned Americans in Benghazi will abandon them in Afghanistan. It shouldn't have been a shock to people that voted for Biden that the same people that said this about the Muslim Brotherhood,
a very heterogeneous group, largely secular, which has eschewed violence and has decried
the Muslim Brotherhood
Al-Qaeda
invented modern-day Islamic terror. Now Biden's people are saying the same people playing footsie with the moderates in Iran and in Afghanistan. We are not this stupid, people. As far as terror threats go, the Biden administration is looking at a great reset before 2001. But now, rather than just Al-Qaeda, the threat is on multiple fronts. The next 9/11 is now closer than we ever thought possible. I'll explain in a minute. There is a new snack in town, and as you can see, I like snacks. If you spent 5 minutes listening to me talk, you know I have a sweet tooth and I love a good snack. But I also would like to be healthier. I just need some self-control. I really do. I eat when I'm sad. Anyway, protein bars. Protein bars, they taste like garbage. Built bars are protein bars, but they don't taste like garbage. It's because the makers of Built Bar understand flavor has to come first, whether it's the mint brownie flavor. Oh my gosh, it tastes just like that. Cookies and cream, chocolate caramel. I mean, it's made with real chocolate, and yet it's healthy, low calorie, low carb, high in protein, high in fiber. Hello. Built Bars. Go to Built.com right now. Built.com. Use the promo code BECK15 and save 15% off your first order. You will love me for it, and so will you, Billy. BECK15 is the promo code for 15% off. Built.com. Last week on my radio program, I heard a chilling prediction about where America may be heading next. It came from Reverend Johnnie Moore, a good friend of mine who changed my life. His latest book is the Next Jihad. It brings to light the atrocities committed against Christians in Africa. It is a must-read. Now, Biden has allowed new atrocities to flourish in Afghanistan under the Taliban. This administration is creating a Holocaust, a nightmare, another 9/11. And Christians in the Middle East are paying the price right now. Reverend Johnnie Moore joins me to break it all down. Hi, Johnny. How are you?
Good, Glenn. Good to see you.
So what does the next president inherit 3 years down the road? We have humanitarian crisis in the Middle East, another 9/11 kind of attack. What do we have?
Maybe a caliphate from Mali to Mozambique in Africa, maybe Afghanistan, looking more and more like ISIS, maybe Iraq having been fully taken over by Iran, Israel surrounded, our traditional Arab allies under fire. I'm telling you, if people think what they've just seen is bad, they've seen nothing yet. It's the same playbook. It's just the last time we didn't have Afghanistan in play the way we do now. And now we have an Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan led by terrorists, already sort of recognized by the United States of America. I mean, this is it's incomprehensible.
So what does this mean that Iran would have influence basically from the Mediterranean to India?
Yeah, this has always been their ambition. And even in the Trump administration, they were trying to get the regional actors to just kick the United States out. And, you know, no one took the bait in the region. They know what Iran is trying to do in the region. But what's happening now is the United States government is, in effect, helping them. I mean, this is not the Taliban that was actually at loggerheads with Iran, 20 years ago. The opposite is true. In fact, one of the first statements that the Islamic Emirate made, this Islamic Emirate that was supposed to be an inclusive government and, all of these other things, was we want to have diplomatic relations with all the countries of the world except for Israel. Okay, it is a clear indication that the ambitions of Iran, now with a even more extremist government, literally led by a terrorist who massacred thousands of people, and you have a supreme leader of Iran. And now, what is the title of the new leader of Afghanistan? They're calling him the supreme leader. I mean, it is like history repeating itself. The only difference now is that this Islamic Emirate in Afghanistan has a couple of hundred American aircraft, 600,000 American weapons, Humvees, every direction you can look at. We have, in effect, not only handed the keys in the Middle East to the crazy people in Tehran who want to kill Israel and us and everybody else, we've given them American weapons to do it if they like.
So help me out on Iraq. Those Christians, they're already, they started bombing those Christians. Churches we had rebuilt. Should we be trying to convince those people get out right now? Is this a time for a clarion call for all Christians in the Middle East?
I'm always hesitant to say get out right now, right? Because these are decisions for these people to make.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, if I were sitting there in northern Iraq watching the exact same people in Washington, D.C. do the exact same thing with another country, and Glenn, everyone seems to have forgotten that Joe Biden said on July 27th, just a few weeks ago, that he wants all the U.S. soldiers out of Iraq too by the end of the year. And so if I'm a Christian or Yazidi or another threatened community sitting in Iraq, yeah, I'd be getting out of there as quickly as I could. I mean, the fact of the matter is, we could see it all over again. But once this genie's out of the bottle,
it's out.
You thought ISIS was bad 5 or 6 years ago? You haven't seen anything yet.
Johnnie Moore, Reverend Johnnie Moore, thank you so much, my good friend. God bless. Final thoughts in a minute. I've asked you this before, but I ask you again. Please pray for the people in the Middle East. Pray for all of the people that are working behind the scenes, whose names are never known, thank God. And pray for those over 1,000 people who the Taliban has their passports, their paperwork, their names. Pray that somehow or another they're going to get back on those planes and be able to take off soon. We are doing as much as we can. We can't thank you enough. You're the driving force behind it. If you haven't made a donation yet, please go to thenazarenefund.org or mercury1.org and make a donation. More on a new chapter on tomorrow's broadcast. Good night.